Is everybody ready to start? Somebody, yeah, thanks, Ty. Somebody's got to say yes, right? Okay, folks. All right. So, everybody, welcome to the PPI Group's Revit Briefcase web presentation. My name is Eugene O'Day, and I will be your presenter today. I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody so you don't have to worry about muting your phones. And then at the end of the session, I'm going to go ahead and open up the lines for some Q&A. Does that sound good for everybody? Thank you. All right. All right, let's get this show on the road here. So I am recording this webcast, so we're going to post this up as soon as it gets actually recorded and downloaded and all the good stuff. So let's go ahead and start off here with our agenda. So what I'm going to talk about today is the kind of tools that are inside the Revit Briefcase. Some of my top favorites I'm going to demo for you folks. And then we'll also have a new release coming out. I'm going to show you some of the new releases and some of the updates as well. So with that, I'm going to start off with some miscellaneous updates. For those people that actually have the Revit Briefcase, we've done some changes to it, and one of those changes has to do with the project units. Before, it was just using decimals, and now we can use whatever the project units are using. So it kind of follows architectural, quarter inches, inches, feet, and all that good stuff. We also have the ability to add our buttons to the quick access toolbar now, so we can put those up there so we don't have to constantly go back over to the ribbon or the tab to get there. And then it's one install now for all three products, or all three versions of the products. And in the past, each version had its own little install, and now it's just one install all the way up to 14 when actually 14 ships. And last but not least, on the ribbon itself, they are now panels that we can pull out and have them floating on the screen. If there's certain tools that you like to use that you don't like to use the access toolbar for, we can drag and drop those over on the second screen or have them floating on the screen. I'll be using that extensively today as I go off my presentation. All right, so view tools. The view tools have had some big changes to them. We have an update on the resizing of the section box. In the past, what the section box allows us to do is when we're in a 3D view, we're allowed to get into a dialog box and make basically changes to the section box in a text format or a number format. But now we also can set it based upon a room and selected views. The toggle category option is one of my favorites. This allows us to go into a dialog box and grab bunch of different family categories and turn those either on or off based upon selected views. (2D) crop region allows us to basically create a length and a width based upon our crop. So when we get into the crop box, we can say that I want it to be 10 feet by 12 feet. The crop region by selection basically is when we select a group of elements inside of the view, it'll crop based upon those elements. And then one of my favorites is the match crop region, which allows us to basically match crop regions across different types of views. The camera view crop region is similar to the 2D region, where it gives us a dialog box that we can key in numbers instead of dragging that box around. And then the align viewport on sheets allows us to go into the sheet view and align them based upon, again, numbers. The quick category toggle on and off is a new feature which allows us to go off and toggle them by category or by type. And then there's a new feature called Create Assembly Views. Assembly Views came about in Revit 2012, and they've increased that functionality in the 13 version as well. And we're just taking that and making it a step further, give us a little bit more easier use to create these things. So let's go ahead and show you a couple of those. All right, so here's my Revit Briefcase tab. What it's going to do is when you install it, it's going to put a tab up there for you. And again, we can pull these off and have them floating. We can right click those and we can add those to the quick access toolbar. So I'm going to go and use the toggle by category option. Now I've already used this, open the drawing up once. The first time you use this box is going to let you know that if you have view templates assigned to any of the views, those views are not going to be present in this view list that you see over on the right hand side. So what I'm going to do is turn off the furniture in the furniture system, or grab those and say that I want to turn those off in the entry level, the department, and I'm going to go and say turn those off down here. Apply that and say close. And what should happen is through two of the views, the furniture is going to disappear, and this view up on top here, it's not seeing it is simply because it has a view template assigned. So what it's actually doing is going into visibility graphics and turning those elements off in visibility graphics. I'm missing my little bar here, so forgive me here. It's kind of hidden. There we go. All right, so the next one I'm going to use is the resize section box. And again, what this gives us is a dialog box that pops up, allows us to key in manual inputs based upon width, depth, height, maximum and minimum, and then a step. We could also do it based upon a view, so we can grab particular views and say I want the entry level, and it's going to show me basically upon the entry level. Or I can say I want to do it per room. I want to do it in the entry level itself, and I want to use, let's see, the cafeteria. I'm going to go and apply that. And when I zoom up onto it and swing it around, you should be able to see the stuff inside. So that's a nice one. In the past, what we would do is go into the view cube, right click, say I want to create a view, save the view, orientation the view, and then grab one of these views. This is doing it kind of automatically for us, but it's also doing it based upon a room. On and off options. So right here under the view category option, we have on and we have off. What these options allow us to do is basically it's a set group of categories that we feel that you're going to use most often. So we can grab basically grids, turn grids off. We can turn furniture off, which would be components at this point. And again, this is actually going into visibility graphics and unchecking these boxes. And again, if there's a view template assigned, we're not allowed to be able to grab and change these items. So again, we can turn them on and we can turn them off. And the last one I want to show you here has to do with assembly. So let me first kind of show you what an assembly is. So what Revit does is when you grab a couple items, and that could have rebarb in there as well, I come up to this little button up here and I can say I want to create an assembly. And what that allows me to do is give it a name, tell it what type it is, and then down in my project browser we now have assemblies. So basically shop drawings, if you will, of that. And if there's something that is common between those, let's say this one and this one, and I want to go ahead and create an assembly of that, it knows that there actually is, oops, I did a parts, let me undo that. Assembly. It actually knows that there is one identical to that, so all we're doing is adding to the count for the shop drawings. So one of the issues that we are finding when people are using that is, now once I have an assembly, I can create assembly views. And when I come up here and say I want to create assembly views, what scale do I want, what views do I want, what title block do I want? They've added a bunch of stuff for us in 13. When I say OK to that, it's going to go and create that open a view for me, and now what I have to do is go to the sheet and actually drag and drop those onto the sheet. So what we've done is kind of streamline that process for us. So if I go off to my create assembly view, I can grab which assembly I want. Right now we're basically doing just 4 types of views, where we're going to position the views, horizontally and vertically offsets. Do you want a title block? What title block do you want? And then when you say OK, it's actually going to create that and place those on the sheet. So now I have all the views that I selected, and then when I look at my sheet, there's my shop drawings for my sheet. And then I can go back, and if I want more information, I can go back to the create assembly views and add more of these. And of course, assemblies, we can do more cuts, and we can do schedules and things of that nature to it. All right, let's move off to the modify tool. So a couple different new features here and some added features. Draw a boundary box allows us to basically create lines around selected items, so annotation lines, if you will. One of my favorite here is room to floor. This allows me to basically grab an existing room and place a floor in there, and this is really good for when we want to show finished floors. And then how many times have you had to go in and make changes to your grid bubbles? Change it from A to B, change it from 1 to 2, change it from 1 to A. This gives you a little dialog box that allows you to do that all at one time. So a really great little tool for that. So let's show a couple of those. All right, so I'm going to go and grab this room right here. I'm going to go to my tools and just drag that one on the screen so you can see it. And then there's the room to floor. I'll go and grab that one. It's going to give me a dialog box that allows me to choose what type of floor I want. Let's say I want a finished carpet, what level it's going to go on, and how high off that level do you want it. Do you want to include the door count? Do you want to union the floor if there's a structural floor behind it or another floor underneath it? I'll say OK to that, and there's my floor. Now the nice thing about this is we can grab all of this information at one time and just pick the button. So when I grab those two rooms, I can say I want that to be tiled, and let's say I want that to be 1 1/4 inches off the ground, and it'll give me that 1/4 inch there, and I'll say OK. And then it automatically created those floors based upon those two rooms. Really cool tool. So looking at the grids here, for whatever reason, this really should be 2 and that should be 3, and we can kind of carry on. So what I'm going to do is grab all of these right here, 10 through 2. Zoom up a little closer now. And I'm going to hit my Edit Grid button. It's going to pop me up in the dialog box, and this allows me to change positions. You can actually change what location where it's at. Is it vertical? Is it horizontal? And then you can change the numbering system as well. I'm going to go ahead and say I want that to be 3. Oops, I messed up there. Let's try that again. I want that to be 3. We'll say OK. Automatically renumbered them. So when I say close, automatically did it for us. And all I need to do is come in here and change that to 2. So real quick and easy. Think about how long it's going to take you to really change all of that at one time. This is a great tool to speed that process up. All right, some annotation tools here. Simple alignment basically allows us to grab either text or label and align, and it'll align it up to that model line or to that text line or to that annotation line. The align text option does really kind of the same thing, but you're allowed to choose the justification, top, left, middle, center of that based upon that line that you selected. Material legend basically allows us to, in a drafting view, create legends of materials based upon the levels that we're in. Legend by category is basically just that. It allows us to create legends, door legends, window legends, wall legends in the legend family or with the legend family. So there's my drafting view. I'm going to go ahead and just dock these. Let's grab that. So material legends, go and select that. It's going to give me a little dialog box that pops up. It's going to ask you about what floor would you like it to be on, what do you want to call the legend for the header, what text style for the header, what text style for the labels, and then what patterns would you like to add or remove. And then all you got to do is okay. Oops, one more thing I want to do is the spacing between those. Let's give it an 1/8 inch spacing. And then I'll say okay to that. And then there's my material legend. Pretty slick. Analyze tools. All right, so they've changed the names on these for the people who have used them before. The insert one is basically the column. What it allows us to do is actually add a parameter to the column to report back the X and Y and Z location relative to project location, share coordinates, and all those things. Where length allows us to add a parameter to report back the beam and the beam length, the total length, and the cut length of that. And thickness reports back and adds a parameter about the wall thickness. Room lighting is not a great name. We were going to update that name. It really should be room management now. In the past, room lighting is kind of what it did. This one allows us to basically give a percentage of the windows versus floor area. But now what it allows us to do is also delete undefined rooms and calculate the room size. Door swings will add a parameter to your project to give you report back on the door swings in a schedule. So let's do the room one. Let's go and grab the room lighting one. It's going to bring us a dialog box up. It gives us the room name, number, area, number of windows, areas, lighting percentage, room size. And then down at the bottom here is where I've got the rooms that have not got any definitions to them. They're actually kind of floating out in space here, if you will. Kind of right there is where they're at. So first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and just delete those rooms. And we'll say yes to that. And then when I close this box down, you see that those rooms are gone. Let me get into a schedule here as well. So there's the schedule. I'm going to go ahead and go to my room lighting button again. And what I want to do is add room sizes to it. So there's a nice little button right here to add room sizes. Basically does all the calculations for you, and there's the size of the room. Now it also creates a parameter for us that we can add into our schedule. So all I need to do now is go into my schedule. Let's bring up the properties window for a minute. Say I want to add a field. That field's going to be the room size field. And let's move that up just a little bit so we make sure we can see it. And I say OK. And there's the room size field. Very nice. So here's a column. If I grab the column here and I say let's do an insert to that, it's going to ask me how do I want to do it based upon relative coordinates, project coordinates, or share coordinates. I'll say project coordinates. And once I have that, I'm going to go and get back into properties here, and you can see right there it threw in those coordinates for us. If I pick the wall and I say thickness, it'll add that thickness right there. All All right, selection tools. So we have a new one called category and type. Really two kind of separate ones. Basically allows us to grab elements in the view and select them based upon, or view or project, excuse me, based upon the type or the category. Similar to the right click, select all instances in view or all instances in project. And then filter allows me to go off and grab instances of families and then narrow those down into certain types of families based upon the elements and the views. Let me zoom out there. Oh, actually, I want to go into a 3D view instead. So I'm going to go and grab that wall right there. And if I say select by category, it's going to go project or view. And I say view, it's going to grab basically all of the walls in the project. Again, this is similar to right click, select all instances. Shouldn't have done that one. Here we go. Now type is a little different. So when I grab, let's say, the wall and I say select by type in view, it's going to grab just those particular types of walls. So same thing with any of the other features. If I say by type, it's going to grab just that type. So I can narrow that search down and I can hide those and do anything I need to do to those particular items. Now filter, it's kind of, think about selecting everything and then going into the little filter button and unchecking the things you don't want. But this can narrow it down a little farther. We can do from selections based upon what I picked. I can do from the entire model and also include the annotations. I can do it based upon the view that I'm in, and then how do I want to group or see information? Do I want to see it by category and level, by room, by family, by phasing, and then category and properties? I'll stick with the view that I'm in on category, and I'm going to come over here and say that I want to grab, let's say, furniture. I want to grab let's say, a roof. But I could also narrow it down as well. So if I go into planning, I can pick just individual types of things like the tree, and then I'm going to go and say OK, and now I've just selected those particular items. All right, we're hitting the home stretch here. BIM Manager Tools. So open project folder. That's basically what it's going to do, is it's going to go to Windows Explorer and go to the location of the project that you're currently in. Export families is the tool that it used to be, and now it's called just basically export, and same thing for import. It's just basically import. What the export allows me to do is grab all of the families or selected families in my project and then save them to a location on my hard drive or my network where I would like those to go. Import kind of is the same thing, allows me to grab from a particular folder area on the network or hard drive and import those families into my project, and I have the ability to override or not override existing families that are already here. Material Editor allows me to basically rename materials or delete unused materials or materials in general. And then the Sheet View Manager, they've updated that. In the past, would allow us to go off and view what's on the sheet and change certain types of parameters like numbers of sheets, numbers of names. But on the new version, we have the ability to duplicate the sheet and then say what view we would like to go onto the sheet as well. Project Cleanup is really a great tool when we're in our different stages and we're archiving our files. We can delete views that we don't want anymore. We can delete sheets out of the project. Whereas MultiType Editor allows me to go in and grab type parameters of all the different families that I want. Really a nice one there. And then last but not least, we have a bin query option that basically allows us to grab information from our file, export that Excel, make changes in Excel of that file, and import that back into our project and update our project. So let's start off with the sheet view here. I'm going to go ahead and just say Sheet View Manager. I'm going to pop over to my sheets. It's going to show me basically all the sheets. Going to let me know if it's on views. It's going to let me know if it's on a sheet or not. What's the name of it? Is it architectural? Is it structural? And then the new stuff over here, I'll pop over to sheets. I can say that I want to duplicate the sheet. I want to create that one, and I actually want to put on this view. We'll say OK. Automatically creates it, names it. I've done once before, so that's why it's column number 4. I'm going to go and say OK to that just to see what it's going to do. And if I look in my project browser, I'm going to find sheets. I'm going to find that new sheet there. When I click onto it, it's going to place the view, and then I can adjust it and adjust the scale as well. I think one of my favorite pieces of that is to be able to go in here and just change the numbers and change the names, basically. Let's see, 102 and floor plan. And all I have to do is say OK, and it will automatically change those. All right, let's get into I can stay here. Go to BIM query. So BIM query or BIM link or data link is what it's called right now in the dialog box. It allows us to go off and grab categories. So what categories of information do you want to get? Let's say I want to go for some rooms here. So I'll grab rooms, and then when I say OK, it's going to show me all the rooms and also the materials. And materials is something that we get for free, I guess. And then when we look at the rooms, here's all the information about the room: the location of the room, the constraints of the room, the limits, the volumes. Here's some identity data stuff like floor finishes, and your share parameters are going to show up here, or your project parameters are going to show up here as well. Now what we can do with this is we can basically just save it out. So I'm going to go save it. I'm going to override my existing one here. And I'll go ahead and just close her down. I'll get into a schedule view as well. And then in Excel, what I'm going to do is go ahead and just open up that file. And there's the format. So it kind of looks the same as what we got over in Revit. And as I scroll through this information, I'm going to look for this here. There we go, wall finish. And I'm going to be very fancy and just say paint. And then we're going to do a typical Excel thing. Let's grab everything. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and just save it and close it down. So meanwhile, back here, what I can do is go back to my query option. I can do a category refresh, but what I'm going to do is go ahead and say, you know what, let's open up that one that we've been messing with out on Excel. Let's grab that, let's open that up. It's going to show us the information. It's going to let us know that we changed paint. There's all the paint. Now, if I say close to this, nothing's going to happen because all I did was just kind of look at it. What I want to do is actually apply that to my wall category right there. So I'm going to go ahead and say, let's go back there. Let's open that file up again. And I'm going to go ahead and say, let's apply it. Close that down. And then this automatically updates my schedule. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions. Sarah, can you hear me? Excellent. Yes, I can. So any questions, folks? Is this Ty? all of the what would you can give us a suggestion. We can pass that off to our programming staff to see what you'd like to have. You have spaces. Yep. But what would you do with a space? Are you using spaces as a set of rooms? In Okay. All right. I'll see what we can do on that one. I'll write that one down. I'll test it out too and see if that's something that we can do. Is that Tiffany? Yeah. That was Tiffany, right? Bum, 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 bum. And that was Project Cleanup. There you go. So basically what it's going to do is give you a box that you can choose what you want to delete. So if I want to get rid of my grid one that I don't use, and this one right here I'm not using any of these little stars that I was doing, I can go ahead and say delete those. Clean. They will be deleted. Are you sure? Yes, please. And now they're, yeah. So the question, folks, if you didn't hear, was can we shift select can we grab a group of things? We should be able to oops. And it didn't let me do it. So it's going to be based upon your category. That could be just a beta thing. All unused? Is that what you're asking about? No, not quite yet. Right. And that is, I believe, on the wish list. Yeah. So what are you asking about? I'm not quite sure. Okay. Let's find out. So let's go ahead and close all of this. So the question is, can we use some of these tools going across linked files? Is that right? Okay. So let's do the simplest one here. So at this point, not the query tool, and the other tool was kind of like the rooms tool. And I'm going to say, since there is no rooms here, it's not going to do it. So most of it's going to have to be dealt with currently in the current project. So let me put that, yeah, let me put that down and ask the programmers and go from there. It's duplicating anything that is drawn but not views placed. So in other words, it's going to bring in the title block, and then if you have any notes pertaining to it, but not any views that you've associated with it, because you can't have the same view on two different sheets. And can't have schedules on multiple sheets, but you can have possibly legends, annotative things, yes. So it has to be basically an annotative thing on the sheet, not a view. Yeah, but it's separate schedules. It's it's a duplicate of that schedule. It's not the actual schedule. All right. So there's a schedule. So I use that top schedule. So let me go create another sheet here. Uh-oh. Wow. You know, I'm wondering when that came about. That's different. Yeah, you can. Well, I wonder what release that came about. I didn't know that. Well, it's a view. So the answer to your question is, if it's a view that you're dragging and dropping, more than likely not. So now that I have this one, let's go see if I can duplicate it. And that was, oops, that's over here. Okay, so that's going to be 5. And just the title block came across. So again, no views, just the annotation. Any other questions? Yes. It's basically grabbing, what is that grabbing? It's actually grabbing, let's go to it again. Drafting view. Oh, I'm sorry, it's in a new view here. So what it's doing is grabbing the material that's currently in the project in that particular view. So if you're saying, if you're asking if I change this, will it change, will it update basically? Mm-hmm. Only if you change, no, only if you change the actual region itself, because what it's doing is actually creating drafting views and regions based upon those patterns. So if you actually go on and change this pattern, that actual hatch pattern itself, then it's not going to update that. So what you would have to do is just basically just rerun the routine. Yeah. All right, folks. Well, just a couple more things before we close her off. We're going to send you out a survey to fill out, and you get a chance to win a little gift card. Any suggestions that you would like to recommend our programming staff, by all means, just email me, Eugene O at theppigroup.com. And then we have a couple of events that are popping up here. We have for those MEP folks, we have a What's New in Revit MEP 2014 coming on April 16th. There's a little happy hour for the infrastructural modeler, and then I'm going to be doing for the Seattle folks. I'm going to be up in the Seattle area doing the Revit user group on tips and tricks on presentation files. So after that, any other questions? I don't know that. You have to ask Ben and what that is. Yeah. You know how to yeah. That's correct. So really what it's doing is it's pulling off of the same type of thing that Revit does, is really what it's doing. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's no, not yet, but that's on the works. What we're going to be doing is, again, this is the stuff that you can basically do. Basically, it's the views right now that we opted to do, and then we're going to have all the types of shop drawing views that you would have available to you, and then some isometrics to throw in there as well, the different types, and then schedules will be the next step. So this was just kind of the first go around to get this out the gate to help place these things on sheets. Well, really what it is, to be honest with you, it's kind of a best guess. I just got to play with some numbers here just to throw it in. But after they're on the sheet, you can move them around. So really what it's doing is putting them on a sheet for you. Right, exactly. And so that's what we're saying, top left, top right. So you can say that, that's what I'm going to do. Yeah, that's a metric thing. This is a metric. Yeah. Yeah, so that was a metric file, or this is a metric file. It does, yeah. So this happens to be just a metric file, so it would have been inches basically. So we're saying from this corner where you want to go. Any other questions, folks? Okay, well, I'm going to shut her down. Thanks everybody for attending. If you have any questions, again, my email address is right there, Eugene O at thepppigroup.com, and I appreciate your time. Thank you. Thanks.